taught me a lot of things, but Mom taught me most of all how to laugh. And the people who have been around her and saw her always knew that there was some sort of smart aleck remarks that came. So this is not just me. This is hereditary from coming by. I have my brothers who, if many of you don't know, our moms are twins. And so, which means twins share the same genes, which means that my brothers have half the same genes as me, hence they're my half brothers as well. So really today is not really a day of crying and mourning, it's a day of celebrating life. It's a day of being here, being together with people, celebrating, and from this moment on, taking what we have with what my mom shared and moving forward with it at the same time. Laughter was a part of it. So the tears will come. Hopefully the tears of happiness, a few of sorrow. Oops. All right, don't go there yet. But I was smart enough to realize that I need an industrial strength towel for the tears come right here. There are some Kleenexes around, and if they come out and they share, and they, obviously can be brought for as well. For some of you, I just wanted to give you a little background of who my mother was. As far as in the beginning, it's ironic going through photos. I found a picture of her from the beginning, where she's the baby right out of the hospital. She was a twin. She was the older of the two twins by, help me out, how many?
Less than 5 minutes.
Less than 5 minutes,
yeah.
but she still always rubbed that into their mom anyway. She's still always like, yeah, I am the older one. I understand, respect your elders there as well. But she was born in Oakland back in 1927, 7/7/27. I always told Mom that in 1977, she needed to go to the casino someplace, because being born on 7/7 of 1977 was definitely a spot. You got to get lucky on something like that. So she was born on the lucky day. She was raised in Berkeley. Our grandfather had a wonderful place, who eventually sold his place to a gentleman named Franklin Muley. Franklin Muley was the owner of the Golden State Warriors. One of the things so unique is that we would go to her house and her place, and their house and their place, we'd go there, we'd go swimming. Now you think about how ironic. Well, I have a pool here, we go swimming here. But you think about it, in Berkeley, most of the houses are very small, and very small lots. So first of all, to have a lot that's big enough you have a swimming pool on it is just part of it. But also to have a lot that somebody would want a swimming pool. Being from the Bay Area, it's pretty cold there. Not a lot of people want to swim. But I did swim many times, and go there. I learned to swim there and have many memories from there. David lived just up above this pool area, and one of the things that we would always go do, one of my fond memories, is playing water football. And in water football, water soccer, it means you take a ball, you go from one end of the pool to the next, you can do anything but use your hands. You're kicking and heading and getting a foot in the face and kicking around. It was just a time and a memory that we would share. Also, living in Marin County, we'd go over to their house as well, and every time we'd go over to their house, we'd make waffles. And if you've been around my house during the holidays, I still share that same recipe of waffles, and the waffles that we had during that time were made with beer. You're like, now we're talking. And now some people, I've seen recipes when they cook, and they say, bring this, bring that, and a glass of wine. And if you're making eggs Benedict, I'm like, well, what's a glass of wine for? Well, that's for the cook. Well, no, we actually took the beer and put it into the waffles, so it wasn't something that they would put directly into it. Mom originally went to the University of Colorado, and her sister went to the University of Arizona, and later on, Mom went to the University of Arizona. Twins sometimes still follow themselves along those lines as well. She was married in 1956. 2 years later, my oldest brother was born. God rest his soul. He passed away when I was 35. Mom had many loves in her life. Myself, my brother. Anybody know the third one?
Cats.
Her cats. Your cats as well.
Hopefully your dad is.
Well, my dad every once in a while. You got to throw it in there. You know, man, we don't always get that.
It's debatable.
Yeah, that's debatable sometimes. Hey,
That was terrible.
hey. So if you guys on the table, the memorial, Debbie, thank you so much for help putting that together. So mom's there, my brother's there, 3 cats are there, and they were part of her life, so she would have them in a little veil as well. I have to share some stories. I once again sharing stories about humor. So mom loved her cats, and when the cats passed, some of them she'd have them cremated, and they put them into a thing, and then in her backyard she would take the cats and she would bury them, and then nice flowers, nice little memorial for the flowers that were sitting there. My brother passed away, and so brother's passed away. He had them cremated, and where did my brother end up? Well, in the closet, in the linen closet, sitting there. There's a little thing. You open the door, like, oh, here's my brother. Okay, well, that's who your mom was. I had to laugh, too, and then once again, with the humor, my brother ended up being gay later on in life. And so we joked. It says, you know, Mom, you don't have to keep my brother there because he came out of the closet years ago. Yes. But she still kept him there, and to that day I finally pulled him out. One of the greatest gifts my mother gave to me is that she became sober. She was an alcoholic, and for the first 5-6 years of my life, she drank quite a bit. She drank heavily. And I just keep thinking, for that time on, 50 years of sobriety. And that was very important to her. That was very important to her and her life and what's going on. And my cousin's mom as well celebrated 50 years of sobriety and 90 years of life. 2 great milestones that I'll go from there. And one of the problems, one of the things about being sober is that when she was sober, she gave me longevity of life. So many of you say sorry for your loss. Please don't say sorry for your loss, because I had 56 years with my mother, and she gave me so much of my life. I didn't lose, I gained, and I'm a better person. I'm the man who I'm today, and I will constantly take that and honor her and bring it forward and reflect it to my daughters, and if my daughters will reflect it to their sons, maybe
Dogs?
sons, dogs. I said, my kids are married. I'm like, I want grandkids. Get to work. I don't know if they want to do that so much. So I will invite everybody here. If you have a story to share from my mom, please stand up and share it. Please give that time, because as you share it, you share that time, that love. It means a lot to me, and the fact that you guys are here, it means a lot to me at the same time as well. So I will start off with sharing some of these stories. Mom was, once again, somebody who gave a great gift. I have to laugh because when she was in the hospital, she was sitting there, and it wasn't so good, and her teeth were kind of forward. She said, oh, her dentures are coming out. I said, well, that's kind of interesting because she doesn't wear dentures. She actually ended life with all her teeth. I think one was replaced, it was a false tooth, but she had all her teeth at that time. So her teeth were very important to her. So my daughters, when they were born, they didn't have very good teeth. So she ended up paying for their teeth, the dentures to do so, paid for Dee Dee, my wife, my ex-wife, and she paid for them. And she gave a gift that they used every single day. Every time they smile, every time they brush their teeth, every time they talk to somebody, that gift is there. So hence Mom was affectionately known as the Tooth Fairy, because she gave a gift that the kids will use every single day. And it's just a wonderful time. Smiling is just a wonderful thing that they should do. So, okay, so I have another part. So once again, Mom being a twin, and my cousin Duncan and Brad will attest to this. So we'd get together. One of the most wonderful things that we had done is Brad had invited us all down for Thanksgiving to his house. And he, little to my kids, but he had said that, I'm sorry, I don't have a television and I haven't got any internet. And so both my daughters like, what? What are we going to do when we're down there? All we had was a radio to listen to, and so we were there for 4 days. For my children, it seems like that'd be utter hell to have to be at a place for 4 days and not have any internet and any connection. So what do you think we did?
Talk
to each other. Whoa, what a concept that we're sitting on there. So we're doing things. We have all these people together. You're doing all these different things. As you're sitting there, you're got meals going on and things happening. And our moms love to talk to each other. They're the type of thing, they'd be in an event like this. I said, I have to go home. And they'd go home. And next thing they call each other up on the phone, they talk about everything just happened. They couldn't wait to get home, so they'd call each other and talk about it.
Gossip about it, right?
Gossip and see what's happening. Well, they kind of learned at their house, they would go to bed early. But they'd go to bed early, leave the door open, and they'd just be listening to what's happening with us. And they'd be talking about what's happening during the time. As it's happening in real time, they're just sitting there inside there.
Like color commentary. Right?
Yeah, in between. I mean, they would just constantly feed off each other. Then they thought it was fun. Well, you know, I think I'd like a cup of coffee. So my mom wouldn't say, Evan, can you get me a cup of coffee? No, she'd ask her sister, and her sister would say, Evan, would you get your mom a cup of coffee? and they were sitting right next to each other, said, okay, I will. Lowell, would you tell my mom as soon as I'm done working on this and taking care of this stuff, I'll be happy to get her a cup of coffee? And they're sitting right next to each other. But that was sort of one of the things that they lived off of, that they reeled off of in order to sometimes try to control us. And as the boys, we learned different ways to try to
Outsmart them.
Outsmart them, or at least trying to work the connection. And it was just so funny talking in third person right in front of my own mom, my own parents there. So, all right, I'll tell one more, and then I'll invite some other people. Please, if you have a story, something you can think about, something you stand up and share, please do so.
You hear the morning dove chiming in.
In the morning.
I heard it, right?
I keep Mama's up there, so this is a very wonderful thing. I will share that. Very good point. Thank you. So the day Mom passed, I was out here and I was walking around. I look up to this planter that's right up here, and if you notice, the other ones are decorated very nicely. We couldn't do anything with that because a dove had nested itself right in there, and I'm just grateful. Now, if a dove comes to your place, it's a very good feng shui. It's a very good part. It means that your place is of comforting and joy to be able to sit here and be able to feel good about where they're at. It's a comfort. If they don't feel comfortable, they won't come. And I thought, hey, Mom, you showed yourself in a different way. Later on, learned they had eggs. And mind you, this was April 18th.
Right on cue.
Another one over there just landed. Look what they're going. So we watched that. I've had some friends over, and all of a sudden we watched them hatch and watch them move forward. And so they have nestled themselves right here. They've hatched, and I was hoping they'd be here even today. But some of you, one of the babies is over here. I think the other one's flown over that way, and they've come around. And it's just, is it a sign? Is that Mom? Is that somebody knowing what's going on? I don't know. In my heart it is, and that's one thing we'll know for sure. Beautiful sound. I love this. Okay, so as Mom was in her bed here towards the end, for some reason she all of a sudden decided to speak Spanish. Now Mom does speak Spanish, but never really taught it to me during the time. I can barely get myself a beer or a couple of tacos and get myself to the bathroom when I get to around, but at least I have the necessities in life. And so she was saying, mas comer, mas comer. Now, for those of you who don't understand Spanish, the verb comer means to eat. I go, Mom, mas comer? She goes, yeah, I want to get some more sleep. I go, yeah, but Mom, Khmer means that you want to get something more to eat. I told this to my youngest daughter. She says, well, I guess so. So you want to get more sleep, but you keep saying Mas Khmer. And she goes, man, I'm not getting much sleep, but I sure am full. So on that note, I will pass things on, and I will ask my oldest daughter, Heather. And if those of you who don't know, next to her is her fiance, and she will be getting married here in 2 weeks. So, and she wears that beautiful smile. Heather, would you like to come up and share?
Sure.
Just put her on the spot. No big deal. Take the wine with you.
Yeah,
I know.
no
I
worries.
need all the
I've
necessities.
got notes if you need them.
Thanks. I decided to go note free this time. Last time I had notes, it didn't go so well, so I was like, I'll just wing it. Yeah, I learned I'm not really a great public speaker. You guys witnessed some of that recently, so, switch it up. When I remember Nana, I think about her wit and her quirkiness and her off-the-wall comments. It was great. One time we were all in the car. I think it's when she was still living in the Bay Area, maybe, I don't know, but my sister and I were in high school at the time, and my sister was talking about how there was this guy that she was kind of seeing. She wasn't really into him, so he was a good guy. She just, it just wasn't gonna work. So she was talking about like, well, I'm not really sure how to let him down easy. Like, we've gone out a few times, but I don't want to hurt him. Like, I just want to, tell him the truth. And we're all giving advice on, well, just, tell him, like, not every relationship is meant to last forever, It's just because you went on a couple of dates doesn't mean you're going to get married. So anyways, we're sitting there and Nana says, well, why don't you just tell him you're Jewish? And we're like,
What? Mom?
I don't even know what to say to that.
Because you're not Jewish, are you?
No, we're not Jewish.
Okay.
And if we were, does that mean that he wouldn't want to? It doesn't really make sense to the rest of us, but somehow it makes sense to her, which just gave us some entertainment. So I feel like a lot of times with her, it was about trying to figure out how to respond to things like that, because you just don't know, and no amount of training will ever allow you to come up with a good response to that. So we were just like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we'll tell him that. No, we're not going to tell him that. So, I remember one time we were driving, and she's like, oh, that's a pretty lake over there. Why is it there?
And you're like,
And let me tell you what, this was before Google, so I can't even, how is a lake developed? I don't know. So we're like, well, I guess there was a deep enough ditch, and it rained enough, and then the water just stayed there. I guess it was, I don't know. But
Mom logic.
yeah, exactly, mom logic. So she never failed to give us a laugh, even if we didn't know why. But I think just like you said, especially in this time, I don't think sorry for your loss is an appropriate response to her death. Of course, I appreciate this sentiment, but she lived to be 90 years old. She had, between her and her sister, had over 100 years of sobriety. I think she lived a great life. She lived in her house with her cats up until, less than a year before she passed. And even after that, she went into homes where she had a lot of great friends and people that cared for her and family that would come visit. And even her cats came and visited. So, I think she lived her life to the fullest. And I think that's all that any of us can really ask for. She went out peacefully, and she did it on her own time. She survived breast cancer and some other, health scares along the way. And if anything, it's taught me that not just on my mom's side, but now also on my dad's side, that I have a long life ahead of me, and that, all things considered and all things willing, that I will go out the same way that she did at the same age that she did. So, you know, I asked her when she turned 90 how it felt to only have 10 years left, and she laughed, and, you know, but I think that that's a reality for us, is that in her honor, we can take care of ourselves and, you know, do everything that we can to live out the same way that she did. So, if nothing else, I'm going to remember her for that, and remember, you know, my Auntie Lolo for that same reason. And, you know, my sister and I are very close, and so I hope that we can go out in similar ways and have each other till the end. And with that, to Nana.
Yeah. That was a tremendous public speech.
Well spoken.
My goodness.
Well spoken.
My
See?
goodness.
No notes, that's the key.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Brad?
Sure. Duncan, why don't you go first?
Huh? You sure?
Go first, yeah.
Well, I may steal your best lines.
That's,
Huh? All right.
You might give him more material.
What's that?
You might give him material to work on.
All right, I'm Duncan Millar, Evan's cousin and nephew to my dear Auntie Mala. So, this has been a tough year. Last 9 months, we've lost the following people. We lost Hugo Carver, cousin, who had ALS in his 70s, I guess, down in San Diego. His daughter Jennifer, who was in a car crash at age 40 with kids in San Diego. We lost Peter Garthwaite, who's about 68 years old, a cousin up in the Bay Area. That was about a month ago or so. I'm sorry, that was
Chris, it was.
Chris was a month
was the
ago.
recent.
His brother Peter died February 24th of this year. Going backwards, February 23rd was my brother Brad in a car crash in Santa Maria.
Andy.
Yeah, Brad's still there.
I always got you guys so confused.
Brad, you're not dead?
That's right.
Oh, so you guys can see him too. Maybe. Oh.
It's all rolling together. So, that was obviously stunning and rough. And then my mom back in August last year. So, and then my Aunt Mala. So it's been a rough year, and I wondered how I'd feel about today, just because there's so much that's happened, especially with my brother and my mom and my aunt. The other cousins, like I wasn't that close to, but it's rough when all that's happening. Anyway, with my Aunt Mala, I sure loved her, and she was always really good to me, and to my wife Michelle, and my 3 daughters. And they're down in Southern California. They couldn't come up for this, but my Aunt Mala was always supportive. My girls are Girl Scouts, and she always placed the order. She'd usually place it to my mom, and we'd channel them up here. My wife has a cookie business as well, and she'd place orders through my mom. My mom would say, send Mala a dozen cookies, a chocolate chip in this flavor and that flavor, and then we'd send them, and she'd send another batch. Okay, so we just keep sending cookies up to Sacramento, and my mom would say that my aunt would give them as gifts to her friends, to her neighbors, as just a little kind gesture, and we appreciated it, supported our little business as well. So she was always in recent years, and going back many years with my wife and kids, supportive. And I would definitely say, I mean, this is a lifelong relationship with my mom, but really very much so in recent years after the passing of my mom's husband, my stepdad Jack. My aunt was a real companion to my mother, and they would have, as Evan said, after an event, they couldn't wait to race home and pick up the phone. And if my mom didn't call, her phone would ring, so my aunt would call, and they would gossip and talk about who they saw and what was interesting, and then invariably the conversation would go to Sir Charles the cat and my mom's cat Popsy, and it's like we would eavesdrop on these conversations, and they took great delight and comfort in being able to bond with each other in that way. So she was a great companion to my mom. When I called my mom, you know, it's her son calling and talk about work or talk about family, talk about her problem. She said, Duncan, it's coming up on 6. I'm going to have to talk to you tomorrow. I go, Mom, this is important. You see, but I have to call my sister. 6 o'clock every night. I go, but Mom, hey, Duncan, okay, I'll call you tomorrow. Okay, you'll be fine. I'll call you tomorrow. Okay. So they had that sort of relationship, and there's a lot of twinness in that. And I think I'm not a twin, but having grown up with them as mothers, both my mom and my aunt were kind of my moms. I guess I understand that. And to talk about, if they all knew, both of them knew what was going on in the world. So we would joke as kids that there were basically 3 types of communication in Marin County. There was a television, there's a telephone, and there was tell mom, or tell my Auntie Mala. Because if any of them heard one thing, it got spread amongst the family and among friends as well. So all you had to do was share with one of them, and the other would know, and it would just be broadcast throughout the area. So Evan talked about his mom's life, and I would just add a couple of things to this. When my mom died, my brother Andy, he had really a fantastic eulogy for my mom about her journey, and I can't replicate that for my aunt, but I did want to touch on a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting. My aunt had her own distinct journey, and part of that I think was characterized by kind of 3 stages in her life. And I think in her childhood, having grown up in Berkeley, she came from a family of, I think, tremendous, by any standard, tremendous amount of wealth and privilege. And with my uncle Garth, my cousin Kelly's grandfather, the 3 siblings grew up in a home of privilege with servants and gardeners and a beautiful home up in North Berkeley. And they were very well known in society. They had ski trips, private schools. My mom went to Anna Head in Berkeley. I don't know where your mom went, but I think
Catherine Branson.
Okay, Branson's exclusive private schools. And this was from 1927 when they were born, and Garth was 1926. These were children of the Depression, right? So a lot of the kids were not, privileged like they were. This was followed by ski trips in the early days. You see them with the long skis up in Tahoe and places beyond. Then there were the Colorado River trips. My grandfather was an explorer in the river. My mom and my aunt and my uncle were featured in that when they're 14, 15, 16 years old. So really kind of an exclusive childhood. Furthermore, they went to universities. They were in Hawaii. You see the records at the Huntington Library of their diaries when they were in Hawaii as late teenagers. Then I think in 1947, my mom and my aunt, they went to Europe, and we see them on bicycles in the Netherlands and in devastated Germany. It's like, what are they doing as tourists after World War II in Germany? So it's pretty special that they got that. I see some of the correspondence from my grandfather to them about their budget and sending them money. So I think my aunt had a very privileged early childhood and early adulthood. They had the glamorous weddings. You've seen the pictures of my Uncle Brian and Aunt Mala. Glamorous, flowing gowns and these, it's just classic weddings. And so life, I think, was pretty good. But like with everybody, things changed, and my uncle and aunt, they split up. She fell into, as my mom did, into a period of poverty. There were apartments and food stamps and help, and I think going from a life of luxury to divorcee in the late 60s, that wasn't really cool, and sort of basic rudimentary job skills for women back then. It wasn't like it was for young ladies today. The opportunities weren't there, so she suffered. Evan and Bryn did too. So Brad and Andy and I, we would, I was hoping I wouldn't do this. We would visit, and my aunt would make her home available to us. So we would come up. My dad's in Southern California, my mom's in Marin. My mom didn't have a place for us, so Auntie Ma would take us in. So we had a great time with Bryn and Evan and Brad and Andy and me, and we'd all be the 5 brothers hanging out together. And Bryn, my aunt opened up her doors for us, gave us everything she could during those summers. We'd spend 2 months in the summer, a couple weeks at Christmas, and so on and so forth. So beyond that, in the mid-70s, my aunt got a job at the Terra Linda Parks and Recreation, and she had a long 20 years there or so.
25,
So she
28.
so she pulled herself out of food stamps and kind of poverty and into kind of a middle class where she got benefits. She had tenure. She'd been with the County of Marin and all the benefits, 25-year run there, and ended up owning a home here in nearby here in a beautiful area. So she went through this sort of wealth and poverty and dire straits and kind of back into a nice middle class with beautiful granddaughters and daughter-in-law for many, many, many years, and I think a really kind of a cool life. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about her life journey. You can see a lot of personal stuff there for me, but it's all good. In terms of twinness and Evan's stories, a couple of highlights, and then I'll let my brother take over. We all know Pig Latin. We were talking about it last night at my brother's house. They had their own language. I don't know if you've heard of this through the years, or David, Optok.
Optok.
So instead of Ik Pe Atenle, it was Opoktabak. And they would do OP instead of the Pig Latin side. Is anybody familiar with Optok? Yeah, are you?
Optok.
We had twins in our family, and they just had their own language.
Their own language.
I don't know what it was called, but they would call you something like Gappa, they called me, because they couldn't say grandma or whatever. And then the other one would immediately pick it up, and that they both remembered.
Their
and
mind
that's
read, they
the
knew
way
each
would
other's,
talk.
what their thoughts were. They would complete each other's
Yeah, their
sentences.
own
And this
talk.
Optok, it was hard enough for us to tell them apart as kids, but here they were having this own language, their own special language. So that was nuts. But really great memories growing up as a young teenager. And before, we'd go out to Stinson Beach. There was a Volkswagen convertible, and we'd be in the back. I don't know if it was Evan or Brad or Brendan. We'd all be some of us would be in the back seat, and they'd have their little conversations, gossipy, quick-witted. My aunt was extremely smart, extremely quick-witted. She threw out that little comment, like you said, about "Tell me you're Jewish." It wasn't contrived or mean. It was just some little funny, quirky little comment. We played a word game called Boggle, which was deciphering words with a roll of a dice that had letters on it. My mom, my aunt were unbeatable. Aunt Mala was so sharp and so fast in understanding those things. These are things that I remember, just some of many. At the Terra Linda Rec Center, she opened that up for me. I think Evan as well. We'd swim all summer. She just opened doors for us during our summer journeys to Marin County. So that's basically, there's a lot more to it, but I miss her. And I really had I love the relationship I had with her. Like all of us, she had strengths, some of her weaknesses. She endured quite a bit. Had a really rough patch in her life, and I think she landed very nicely on her feet. The last 20, 30 years of her life, I think she would say, were very enjoyable, and it was great to know her all those years. So may she rest in peace. That's all I got. Anybody else?
Love you.
Very nice,
Yeah?
very nice.
Here's the MC.
Now, coming
A man who needs no introduction.
Brad is.
Hi, I'm
man
Brad
who's
Millar,
usually lost
and
for
very much
words,
still
and he
alive,
doesn't really
despite
know
my
how
younger
to do
brother's
anything.
wishes.
Yeah,
Other
he
than
can
that,
never really get any
and being
words
able
out
to
of
talk
him, but
over
once
my
we
cousin
talk,
has
it's
been a
really not
long
that
time
difficult,
practice
'cause we
for
don't
me.
have any problem at all,
Him being
'cause
6
he
months
can
younger
talk so
than
much,
I,
and it's
and I've
different for
learned
him
the
to do
skill
so,
that
but
what I
once
need
you
to do to
have
get a
that,
word in
after a while,
edgewise
it
is
isn't
just
really
to
that
ignore him
difficult after a while
altogether.
to do so.
So I have 6 months
There is
on him
not
and a
that
lot
much.
more
That's
practice.
just a little bit, but we don't.
See what
I'm
I grew
sorry,
up
were you
with?
talking?
So Duncan was right. He did say everything I needed to say, so thank you very much.
All right, go ahead.
Well, actually, it's very true. You got about 8 out of the 9 I had here.
Good.
Just to add a couple things that Evan talked about was our mom's going to bed early. Do you want to know all this family stuff about us?
Yeah.
All right. When he says go to bed early, what he means is 5 o'clock. So we would have Thanksgiving dinner around 2. They'd be in bed at 5.
Yeah.
And then stay
what?
up and listen all. Yeah, I don't know. That was
You go to
interesting.
sleep about 9.
It was mentioned that I didn't have TV in my house, and I didn't, or internet or anything like that. And what was interesting is that my brothers found a way somehow to get the 49ers game on and watch that during Thanksgiving, and that's perplexing in a number of levels and disappointing because we all know the 49ers are the Devil's team, right?
Well,
And yeah,
security.
and the coffee at Thanksgiving thing was so funny because it wasn't, and then it was, because you'd be making breakfast, I'd be in there making breakfast, and they'd be hollering about coffee, and at one time I just kind of lost it. You know, do you remember this? And I said, Mom, Mala, if you want coffee, you can come right here and get it because I'm doing the baconing. And they cracked up. And so what I realized was they were kind of needling us to get a reaction out of us.
How'd they get coffee at their own house?
That's
They
what I
live on their own.
said. You live alone. How do you
Live
manage
alone.
to get
I can't believe
coffee
it.
the rest of the year? But it was their funny sense of humor, I think, that was
That
coming
is true,
through.
yeah.
Duncan mentioned that the shortest distance in life is to create a straight line between two dots, and that dot was my mother and his mother. The op-talk, you covered that. One of the things that Mala did for us, as Duncan mentioned, we grew up in Southern Cal and would visit them during the holidays. So every summer, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, we were visiting in Marin County. Don't go, it gets a lot better.
Oh, it is, huh?
Yeah.
I've heard this before.
Oh, that's true. And so she opened up a place for us to stay, 'cause my mom didn't have a lot of places for us. But it was interesting. I don't know if you can imagine 5 boys all within the span of 6 years. So it was my older brother, Evan's older brother's a year younger. I was 3 years younger than Bryn. Evan is 6 months younger than I, and then Duncan's a year and a half younger than Evan. And all of us descending on the house and her trying to make ends meet. And as Duncan said, she wasn't making a lot of money. But Evan, do you remember this? That at least there was peanut butter in the house.
As long as you had peanut butter and, yes.
Which was very good. So she'd buy these enormous jars of Skippy peanut butter, crunchy, which was really delightful. And so as young boys, we would go in and say, well, God, we're hungry. What is there to eat? And we'd go and find the cabinet with the peanut butter. Well, that sounds pretty good, except what we noticed was the spoon that she had been using was still in it.
No, yeah, graham crackers.
And these big scoop marks in the peanut butter, so we decided to go hungry that day. Just a couple other things. We joked, since our moms were twins, that we kind of figured if one would go, the next would too. I mean, because they were really so intertwined. And we always wondered who would go first. And it ended up being my mom back in August. And we figured, all right, when is your mom going to go? How stubborn is she going to be here? But she made it. Didn't live to 91 though.
And she wanted to, I'm sure.
I'm sure she wanted to, but she made it till 90. So it's all the way to the end. They were that intertwined, and that was pretty cool. But when I think about the greatest gift she gave me, it was really my cousins, because we grew up so far apart. We didn't get to know the Garthwaites. We didn't get to know, so many of our relatives up here. I was born in Berkeley, but then grew up in Southern Cal. So we really didn't get a chance to know the family all that well. But my cousins, and so we were with them all the time. And we throw around that word, we're like brothers, but in so many ways we are, and we miss Bryn to this day, and our brother died in February, and so now it's just the 3 of us left. But I'll always be grateful to your mom for opening up the house, the apartment, whatever it was she had, to allow us to come and to spend the kind of time we needed with you.
Nice.
Love you, Mom.
Alrighty.
All right.
Now let's please open it up to anybody who has a crazy story. Not about me. Well, maybe there's a few out there.
Even though she couldn't be here today, Bethany sent us something this morning about death and life, and I think that it'd be fitting to share that also. She's obviously an artist with words, and although I don't think that she wrote this, I think that it was perfect, and it was perfect timing. So, is that okay? one time I told Nana, which rendered her speechless, which never happened, so you know it was a good one, but I told her that, you know, getting old is a privilege. Like, not everybody gets that. It's not a right, and I think that for her, even in her old age, you know, I think it kind of sunk in with her and was like, you know, yeah, this is true, you know, there's babies that die before they even get to speak or walk, or, you know, people who are taken from this world too early, and I think that, you know, like I said before, Nana and Auntie Lo had a great life here, they had a great span, you know, so, anyways, this is what Bethany wrote for, or she didn't write, like I said, I think it was sent, she said, from her favorite book. So it says, death. But how does good apply to the worst of losses, the death of a loved one? It's easy to think that there is nothing good in death. But then I remember the people that I have lost throughout my life, the memories of them, the experiences, the fun, their unique personalities, and everything they gave me. Not only in their life, but in their death. What their life taught me, what their death taught me, the mark that they left on me. And I realized there is good, even in death, there is good. First of all, I was lucky to have had that person in my life, even if it was only for a short time, too short a time, at least I got that. Those precious moments, those unforgettable memories, at least I got those and got to experience those times. To know the beauty of their personality, their attitude, Alana attitude, their outlook on the world. They were all unique, and I'm thankful for the opportunity I had to interact with them. Now comes death. Death is horrible, and death is wretched, and death is cruel. And death isn't fair. And I don't know why the best people seem to be taken from us first. Death is also inescapable. There's no way out. No one gets out alive. Death is part of life, like the contrast between the darkness and the light. Without death, there is no life. And the people that I have lost, they taught me this. They taught me how precious life is, how blessed we are to have every day, to learn, to grow, to laugh, and to live. So then the next section is to live. To live every day with purpose and passion. To wake up in the morning and be thankful. Thankful for that morning. Thankful for that opportunity to go into the world and live. Live for them. Live for those that don't have the opportunity. For those who were stolen away by death's cruel hand. For them, I will live. I will revere in their memory, and I will live. So, let us cry no more. Let us mourn no more. Let us remember, but not let us dwell. Instead, let us laugh and love, and let us embrace everything that life is and every opportunity it gives. Let us live for those who live no more. Let us live to honor them.
Very nice.
I think it's perfect that that came from Bethany. It sounds like something she would have said.
For those of you who don't know Bethany, that's Brad's oldest daughter. I would welcome anybody who has anything else to share. But I'll get it.
No, go for it.
Are you sure? Because I have a feeling it will be a lot the same.
I can't do this kind of thing. So.
Well, I took notes.
You do it for me.
I've been
Better
working
than
on
me.
this. I'm not going to read it, but there's just so much. And I know we're not mourning, but I still am. Because I lost my best friend and my neighbor, and I'm just her neighbor. And, you know, and I used to think before Maradel, a neighbor was just a neighbor. You know, somebody you'd wave at, or maybe bake cookies for, or what have you. And but 14 years ago, we had this nice little family that lived right next door to us, and their kids grew up with our kids, and one of their sons in particular ended up being really good friends with our son. They're in the back, they're my family. And I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of all of them, but so they came to us one day and said, we're gonna move. And we were just heartbroken. And my son went through a hard time because his best friend was going to leave him. And all I could think was, boy, whoever moves in this house has some really big shoes to fill. Because to me at the time, it didn't seem like it could get any better than what had lived there for the whole time we were there. And so 14 years ago, the moving truck pulls up. And, you know, we're watching people go back and forth. And I didn't know who our new neighbors were going to be. I had no idea. And so when things settled down, I knocked on the door, and the door opens, and I think it was Heather or Caitlin, one of you, I forget, but there's this beautiful young girl standing there in the doorway, so sweet, and then Dee Dee came to the door, and I'll never forget that day. And I stood there and I thought, well, they seem nice enough. These will be good neighbors, you know. And then Dee Dee explained it's her mother-in-law that's going to be living there, and that she's too tired to come to the door. And so I thought to myself, well, I wonder what kind of person she's going to be, you know. That's rude because, you know, here we are to meet her. And all of a sudden she got up and she came to the door. And she was so tired. I remember her being so tired. And she said a few words, and I said a few words, and I walked away, and that was it. And I had no idea when I walked away the impact that lady would have on my life. Everything that woman ever did was out of love. I mean, she just loved to love people. It's all she cared about. It's all she ever did. She was stubborn sometimes. Sometimes she had needs, you know, and because we became such good friends, I would try to be there for her. And you know, after she passed, I realized the only reason she cared to ever get better, get back out of the hospital if she fell, whatever it was. I mean, she got in a lot of I mean, she did a lot of things in the last 14. Got rear-ended by a tow truck. I mean, we could just go on and on and on, but she always bounced back. But I really now, looking back, the only reason she had needs was that she wanted to get better so that she could just keep loving people. And I don't think I've ever met anybody that was so selfless as she was, and the wisdom that lady had. And you know, she loved to talk. Oh my God, she loved to talk. And she loved her family. Oh my, if you guys only knew how many Brad and Duncan and every single person in your family, I could just, if you guys only knew how much I feel like I know everybody here. And the one thing that I think of anything, well, two things she taught me: never go off first impressions, because now looking back, you know, when she moved to that house, she left her sister to move there. She had brought her cats to this new house, which I know was very stressful for her. She didn't like change. Maradel she liked things a certain way, and she was probably very stressed out that day I came to her door. And I kept thinking, you know, how many times we may judge somebody and never have an opportunity to really get to know that person, and that was one of those times. And I will never ever judge a person by the first, you know, impression, because she was everything opposite of that first meeting with her. And what else? There was something else I was going to say too. I guess that's why I have notes here. I know what I was going to say. That was probably, you know, I was probably 12 years old when I lost both of my grandmas. And I lived my whole life without a grandma. And I always kind of felt left out, you know, and I never got to share those things. And I think toward the end with Maradel, I realized God gave me a grandma. You know, even though she could probably have been my mother, but I mean, she just, you know, she taught me life. She had talks with me that I wouldn't have with anybody else. And you know, and that's, it was family to me. It was not just a neighbor. And I will never forget Maradel. She will forever be a part of, you know, who I would strive to look like at 90 years old, and nothing less. So that's my recollection of my Maradel. Oh, and the other thing, I know, Dee Dee, you were probably going to say this, but if all else fails and you're having the worst day, you go get a Starbucks Frappuccino, because, or Jim Boy's Taco.
If you're good.
Because that will
She says
always,
if you're good, you could have one.
always make everything okay. And I just can't even, there's so many times I used to hear her say that, you know, and I haven't been able to do it yet, because I'm just really having a hard time. But I know I have arrived the day that I can go through that drive-through and get that Frappuccino and have peace about it and smile about it, because that's what she would want, you know. But so that's my.
Great.
She loved you guys. You guys were family just as much as we were.
I know. Can't tell you all the stories I've heard about you two. I'm sure you know plenty about us too, but.
I know everything.
Oh, I know.
Can I just say one more thing? Because this is the other thing that Maradel taught me, and this is huge. You know,
Sorry,
of every story I ever heard Maradel tell, not one time have I ever heard her say anything bad about any human being. Not once. So I don't know what your guys' relationship was, but with me as her neighbor, I mean, that's priceless. And I don't know too many people like that in the world, you know? She loved people, and everything was the good in people, and that's what she saw, and that's what she talked about. And I mean, I could just go on and on about how much I just, everything she would find in people was good. And I used to tell everybody I know, if the sky was falling, Maradel would still find something good to say about the sky falling. She would say, oh, look at the pretty colors, or look at the birds. You know, I mean, she was an amazing woman that I hope I'm half that a woman that she was, in that respect. But anyways, yeah, I love that about her.
Not my thing, but so I got her in my life, what, 36 years ago, something like that. So she wasn't my mom, but she ended up being my mom after all that. And being the daughter-in-law, we definitely butted heads in the beginning for several years. I won't tell those stories because they're not necessarily the good ones. But in the end, we ended up being very close. I used to take her every other week. We'd go to lunch. I used to take her out of the nursing centers or wherever she was staying, and we'd drive up to wherever and go have lunch somewhere. And the Frappuccinos, that was another thing. If you were good, you could have a Frappuccino. So, and I'd take her to the doctor, and if she was good, she got a Frappuccino. So, but yeah, that was just one of the things. She loved her road trips. So I'd put her in the car and drive her around, and so that's one of the things. I remember when we first got married, she'd always tell us that just when I get too old, just put me in the car and drive me around. So that's pretty much what I tried to do for her, and kept her in ice cream. So, but she was a great person, and even though we butted heads, we definitely ended up coming out friends in the end. So anyway, that's it for me.
It's very nice.
Is there anybody else? So, I didn't quite fill this, but I definitely dampened it a little bit. You know what? For my family, my friends, it's hard for me to differentiate sometimes who are my family and my friends, because my friends are and the people around here, the people are here, you are my family. So thank you so much for being here and celebrating this time. We've got lots of food. Please definitely stay around. We will enjoy some time. We will still talk and do things. Once again, one of the things that's important for my mom was her sobriety. And so I will conclude this with a reading from the book. It's called The Courage to Change. It's a book, actually, my cousin's mom gave me. She said, "This is my book, and I want it back." Well, she passed on, so she's not getting it back. But someday I may pass it on to somebody else. So I will finish from the reading from that. Once again, people say sometimes, "I'm sorry for your loss." Did I lose something? Or did I gain something from all this time? Did I gain something for what's going on? And the best way I can probably describe it, if I open up a prized bottle of wine, the best bottle of wine, this Covenant great bottle of wine, and I pour you a glass of that, and you have that glass, and you look at it, and you take it, and then you drink that glass. Did somebody say, "I'm sorry for your loss"? Or did you lose that glass of wine? Or did it now become part of you? And I will say that to my mom. I would say that to that part. I haven't lost my mom. She's not a part of me. And at this point, from day on, I will not make it not only a part of myself, part of somebody I will share on to you and everybody else along those lines. I will honor her every day. I will love her every day. And I'll still throw some tears from each and every time and every day. So I will thank you so much for being here. You guys show not only just respect for my mother, respect for me as well. And to me, that's priceless. I love you for that. So I'll conclude at this point here. Note for the day. Comes from the beginning. If those of you have gone through times and struggle, this book's called The Courage to Change. And I'm amazed how many times I've picked it up and read it. And the times I've looked at it and said, how does that book know what I'm going through? Because I will read it like, this is exactly what I want to need. Somehow the book knows what's happening to me. It's a special book. It's a magic book. But I will read from that. And then I'll ask you guys one last thing. You can gather over here. One thing for a big group hug. And we'll finish from there. All right. Every now and again, take a good look at something not made with the hands. A mountain, a star, the turn of a stream. There will come to you wisdom and patience and solace, and above all, the assurance that you are not alone in the world. Mom, I love you. I love you guys too. Thank you so much. Please stay around. Can we all get together? I need a group hug. Oh.